In reply to Her Excellency the Governor's speech be agreed to. The Honourable Member for Nelson.
Thank you, Mr President. I have the honour to second the motion that the Governor's address be noted, or perhaps it's agreed. I can't quite remember the motion itself, but either or both. And Mr President, as this is my first contribution in this 51st Parliament, I would like to personally acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the original and traditional custodians of this land, Lutruwita, Tasmania. I pay my respects to the Muwinina people of this land on which we are meeting, Nipaluna, Hobart, who did not survive European invasion and dispossession. I pay my respects to Tasmanian Aboriginal elders, past and present, and to any Tasmanian Aboriginal people here today or watching today. I respect and value the connection to land and culture that is held and nurtured by the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, and I express my gratitude for the opportunities extended to me to learn about, share and benefit from that connection and culture. And Mr President, I would also take this opportunity to welcome new members to this chamber. The new members for Elwick, Prosser and Hobart. Congratulations on your election to the Legislative Council. I know you will all and each work hard for your communities, and I hope that you enjoy your time here in this chamber as much as I do, and find the work as fulfilling and purposeful as I think all members here do. So welcome and good luck. I also congratulate our previous members for Elwick and Prosser on their election to the other place and wish them well in their new roles there, along with the other 33 members of that place who have been successful in the recent election, and many of them brand new to the roles that they hold. And while I hope we will have a more formal opportunity to do so at another time, I would also recognise the former member for Hobart, Rob Valentine, whose absence many of us will be feeling. However, I trust that he is watching today from afar and he'll be critiquing our contributions, no doubt. We miss you, Rob.
Have better things to do with his time.
Oh no. I'm sure he's tuned in. Mr President, as stated in the Governor's address, this Parliament will be different to previous years, and this Parliament will require a collaborative and consultative approach, though there will be times where views differ. I couldn't agree more with these sentiments, Mr President, and I'm excited and optimistic about the opportunities presented by this new 51st Parliament, particularly the opportunity to work in more collaborative ways. The collaborative and consultative approach referenced in the Governor's address will take courage and conviction from all those involved, but particularly from the government, as it learns to lead without relying on the brute strength of a majority. I think this moment of opportunity to work differently, to lead differently, has come at an especially pivotal moment for our state. It presents incredible possibilities for transformative progress, but on the flip side, there may be serious consequences if we fail to seize this moment. Because, Mr President, while our political environment may have changed and feel different, the challenges faced by many Tasmanians and the grim realities our state faces, which hold back our ability to thrive, remain alarmingly unchanged, or in fact, in some cases, are escalating. We know our challenges: cost of living, the housing crisis, food insecurity, literacy and educational standards, increasing inequity, poor health outcomes, a failing justice and corrections system, abhorrent abuse of children in this state within institutions and in our communities, the climate emergency, which we are roundly failing to respond to, and many more. The challenge now is to not allow ourselves or decision makers around us to become desensitised to those challenges, to become immune to that suffering, to explain it away as that's just how it is. Presented as we are in this 51st Parliament with a significantly altered political environment, it must be seen as an exceptionally precious opportunity for positive progress, for new solutions. If there was ever a time to work against a tendency to regress to business as usual, this is it. Mr President, I listened closely to the Governor's address delivered in this place last Tuesday, and this sentiment early on in Her Excellency's address caught my ear. She said, "Tasmania is now a growing state with a story to tell." And as our Tasmanian Aboriginal fellow citizens and others would tell us, storytelling provides an important and powerful thread linking past, present and future. Storytelling provides opportunities to reflect, to learn and to share experiences, sorrows, joys, fears and aspirations. Some people's and some sectors' stories are well reflected in the Premier's agenda set out in the Governor's address, but others not so much. We need to seize this opportunity to also hear and tell the diverse ranges of stories of those not represented in the government's priorities outlined in last week's speech. I cannot claim to do so comprehensively here and now, but I can make a start, and all of us in this place can accept responsibility for ensuring, as best we can, that all Tasmanian stories are heard and represented here. I shall start with stories perhaps of unfinished business, Mr President. I've spoken in this place on many occasions about the ongoing, profound and long-standing unsettled debt of Tasmanian history with our Tasmanian Aboriginal community and the custodians of this island, Lutruwita, Tasmania. Given that, it is with great sadness and disappointment to note that the government's agenda outlined by Her Excellency last week did not once mention reconciliation with the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, no mention of truth-telling nor treaty in Lutruwita, Tasmania. It was a shocking silence that spoke volumes. Almost exactly 3 years ago, in the Governor's address made in this place in June 2021 at the opening of the 50th Parliament of Tasmania, it was announced at that time Professor Kate Warner AC would lead a process to understand directly from Aboriginal people themselves how best to take Tasmania's next steps towards reconciliation. It's now been 2.5 years since the Pathway to Truth-Telling and Treaty report, undertaken by Professor Warner, Professor Tim McCormack and Fove Bernardi, was tabled in this Parliament on 25th of November 2021. As we will all recall, the important report provided a vital groundbreaking step forward in our understanding of the depth and longevity of those unsettled debts in our state. The report set out a clear and urgent imperative for action, clear and urgent, which makes it even more astonishing to note that in the current context of continued stalled progress on measures in closing the gap, coupled with the profoundly disappointing and hurtful result of the Voice to Parliament referendum in October last year, we've been presented with an echoing absence of mention of the Tasmanian Aboriginal people in either the Liberal government's 2030 plan or the government agenda outlined in the Governor's address to open this 51st Parliament. Last year, in the Premier's address, we heard reiterated the government's commitment to the Pathway to Truth-Telling and Treaty, including a brief update on progress. Yet here we are 12 months later with the government's agenda presented in the Governor's address with not even a mention of treaty and truth-telling, let alone an update on progress. Mr President, it appears very difficult to find any public update on the government's progress on those recommendations from the Pathway to Truth-Telling and Treaty report. I would hope that we all deserve an update on that front and that we hear from the government soon in some manner to update us on progress being made on the 23 recommendations from that report. I know many in this 51st Parliament, Mr President, across both chambers are committed to progressing truth-telling and treaty with the Tasmanian Aboriginal people of Lutruwita, Tasmania. I see an opportunity for real engagement and progress, and I invite the Rockcliffe minority government to embrace that opportunity. Further, Mr President, I recall that while Premier Rockcliffe accepted and eventually acted upon the 2020 House of Assembly Select Committee recommending the restoration of numbers in the other place, and I acknowledge the work by the current member for Hobart in chairing that committee in her former capacity, there was a second recommendation in that same report which stated, Recommendation 2, that a joint parliamentary inquiry be established in this term of Parliament to develop a preferred model that provides for dedicated seats for Tasmanian Aboriginal people in the Parliament. Mr President, that particular term of Parliament has long gone. However, it is clearly unfinished business that this current Parliament must address, along with the ongoing unfinished business of truth-telling and treaty. Moving on, Mr President, to other unfinished business that I'd like to touch on. Although it did receive one cursory sentence in last week's speech, the Commission of Inquiry is still very much a story of unfinished business for so many Tasmanians, particularly those seeking answers when it comes to the responsibility and accountability of those who either enabled or perpetrated horrific abuse against our most vulnerable, our children and young Tasmanians. It's unacceptable to now seek to solely focus on the government's implementation plan in the absence of those answers so desperately needed. We're hearing a lot about healing and moving forward, but for many Tasmanians, that cannot happen without certain answers, without knowing that those responsible for their pain and trauma and the pain and trauma of their loved ones has been clearly identified and accountability taken. The failure to provide straight and comprehensive answers is to leave victim survivors who bravely came forward to tell their stories with the last pages cruelly left blank. Answers, transparency and accountability form the foundations required before healing can truly begin. And surely Tasmanian victim survivors and their supporters deserve that. Despite its intentions, the Blake Review did not provide the State Service with a clean bill of health and in fact raised more questions than it answered. The Woolcott Review is currently seeking public submission, so may not be in a position to provide its initial report for some time. The Tataka Review into whether legal fee payments to state servants appearing before the Commission